So you've heard of Raja Feather Kelly, and you know he's a black queer dancing, writing, choreographer, and director. That he has a company called The Feather Theory and is obsessed with Andy Warhol. But today I want to tell you why his critically acclaimed work is dedicated to the evolution of popular culture over the last 30 years, and why that's really interesting and worth your consideration. Here's the case for Raja Feather Kelly, pop culture devotee. You know him to look like this, but Rashad Elion Kelly was born in Texas to a single mother, 2 sisters, and a grandmother, and started out looking like this. He grew up quickly and spent a lot of time watching television. Before school and after school, Rashad would sit in front of the television repeating back every line spoken to him. Nothing made him happier, and nothing else could keep him distracted from his mother's neglect and drug use. As a teenager, Raja developed a cocaine habit, was expelled from high school, was institutionalized for depression, and attempted suicide. Rashad had a desire to escape. At 13, Rashad was released from institutional care. He changed his name to Raja Feather and began living with, and eventually was taken in by, local tattoo artists. He took up theater, dance, and youth group, finishing high school with over 50 awards in competitive dancing and theater, culminating in 2 national championships for speech, theater, and debate. Fun fact, Raja was the homecoming king and the prom king, surprising from someone who was bullied. Raja lived with the fear that if he strayed from appearing healthy and successful, he would be forced back into institutional care. This caused him to overachieve, and eventually he decided to go to college. While at university, Raja split his time between the English department, the dance department, and student government. While reading the works of Benjamin Franklin, Andy Warhol, James Hillman, and Anne Sexton, Raja also nurtured his affection for modern and postmodern dance and dance theater. His drug use continued, and this combined with his latent homosexuality, Raja developed anxiety-induced insomnia, sleeping no more than 3 to 4 hours a night with reality television as his only solace. Reality TV, Anne Sexton, and Andy Warhol are among the major influences of Raja's attempt to make sense of the world around him and to develop a philosophy for how he defines himself. At Connecticut College, Raja made dances about shoes, laundry, sex, and animals. He saw these things as a common language. Inspired by the Andy Warhol quote, "What's great about this country is that America started the tradition where the richest consumers essentially buy the same things as the poorest." Raja believed there was a way to talk about larger ideas like life, death, identity, and empathy by talking about how these things relate to products and people. Raja was never keen on making any of this apparent. Raja liked remaining enigmatic when questioned about the meaning of his work. He maintained the understanding that the work was about how audiences experienced it, not always what they were experiencing. This reflects one of Raja's governing principles. Art is the finger pointing to the moon. If we are lucky, the finger disappears. Raja Feather started by using women as the focus of his work: Anne Sexton, Marilyn Monroe, Virginia Woolf, Laura Snow, but soon landed on himself as subject as a way to respond to the evolution of post-war consumer culture, technology, and media. It's the movies that have really been running things in America ever since they were invented. They show you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to feel about it, and how to look how you feel about it. Raja wonders if this is true. Raja started the Feather Theory in 2008 after writing a novel with the same name. The idea of how we come together and why we fall apart. The Feather Theory is a cohort of dancers, actors, filmmakers, and graphic designers fulfilling a vision, appropriating pop culture and smashing it together with the questions, who am I? Who are we? Creating an aesthetic that combines reality television, fashion shows, musical theater, and performance drag with postmodern dance, making shrewd commentary on dance and life as social media. There are a number of themes that make up and recur in Kelly's work: duration, sexuality, fairy tales, death, identity, himself, duration, sexuality, fairy tales, death, identity, himself, and every show begins with a version of the national anthem. These are not just Raja's obsessions. They are deeply reflective of his understanding of the culture of his time, or what does it mean that a black and queer dancer choreographer is inspired by Andy Warhol to make work about being a black and queer dancer choreographer in America. Here's a survey of Raja Feather Kelly, The Feather Theories. Warhol-inspired work. 25 Cats Named Sam. Fan mail. Drella. Color Me Warhol. Another 37 Reasons to Cry. Tropico. Another fucking Warhol production. And coming up, Warhol Wednesday and Andy Warhol's Fantasia. If you ascribe to the theory that the 21st century is the social century, then any work representative of Andy Warhol takes a particular perspective. It charts the development of our obsession with fame and questions the growing commercialization, uniformity, or white claiming of most areas of American life. Raja considers himself a part of this lineage. Benjamin Franklin, Marcel Duchamp, Andy Warhol, Jan Fabre, Jeff Koons, Cindy Sherman, and Jay-Z. He intends to be a shapeshifter. To consider innovation, he does not tolerate reality. He will continue to question and begs his audiences to question. Do you define the culture you create? Or are you defined by it?